So the many use cases we talked about, today we're going to talk about one of the use cases on fraud detection powered by AI and how this has come about, and it's really truly changing the game for community colleges trying to combat fraud. So what is the problem with fraud detection? What we have seen with fraud detection at your campuses is that a lot of the times institutions are just chasing or reacting. They're basically reacting to the fact that there are more fraudsters coming in, filling up the classes, filling up the admissions offices, and filling up the application pool. And because of that, they're unable to catch the fraud like they wanted. Can you hear me okay? So because of that, it's also impossible to catch it using conventional means. Because if you think about it, if you are catching the fraud, you have to go and check if the application is truly correct. If the address that they put in is truly accurate address, or the phone number is their phone number, or if their social security number is theirs. And because of that, institutions are unable to catch fraud. In fact, in California, it's a $4 billion problem. Over the last year, they received over 3 million applications, and 40% of them, 1.2 million of these applications are because of fraudsters that are defrauding the California students. So we have launched Lightleap AI in collaboration with Ellucian, and we launched it in August of 2024 last year. And since then, we processed over 3 million admissions applications, and we caught over 500,000 fraudsters as a result of this process. The initial focus was threefold. Initial focus was first pattern detection, to see where the fraudsters are coming from, what IP address they're coming from, what phone numbers they're using, what email address and physical address they're using as well. And based on that, we built out fraud markers, which is really an AI ML strategy where we built pattern recognition and said, these fraud detection has yielded us to build this formula. And this formula has led us to build a model called Lightleap AI, and that is now currently used by 36 colleges to do everything from automated responses, so that if they detect a fraud, it can automatically send a message to students saying, hey, we found some suspicious activity, can you go and verify your identity using this platform? Or they can ask them to do additional checks like send a notarized document and others as well. And eventually it gets to a point where we are building an iterative process that builds on the success of these and builds better technologies, better models as well. So since March 2024, we've launched it at 26 colleges, and we started at 2 colleges at a pilot at Foothill Lanes and West Valley, and now at 26 colleges, and we caught about 3 million fraudsters. So how does this work? And we'll talk about the problem statement itself. But before we get into this, we want to talk a little bit about what is the impact of fraud if we don't catch it. The real problem with fraudsters is the fact that if we don't catch them, the bots fill up the classroom and prevents good students from joining the classes, good students from being able to enroll, and most importantly, good students from getting their financial aid. But it also has a different problem. If you think about it, most of these fraudsters are using stolen social security numbers, stolen last names and first names, so we might be at risk as well, because these fraudsters are using the information on dark web to catch this and use this information. So institutions are truly at risk because of fraud. And this is what we are super excited about, and we truly appreciate all the institutional success. And we have a 3-pronged model. We have a fraud detection model that's built on Banner, Kali, Janzabar, and itself. And we also have a collaboration with Idology, where they're using it for identity verification and identity tracking. So how does it work? So the concept is truly what's called a multivariate analysis, and this is where I talk about fraud as a holistic problem, where the fraud detection system looks at the information that's submitted at the financial aid application and says, is the social security number issuing state and the student state are in alignment? Or if the IP address of the student that they submitted the application matches the IP address they're saying their home belongs to or college belongs to. And but it's not a rules-based system. We're not building a rule and saying, oh, this social security number is from out of state, so go mark them as fraud. We are basically marking it using a multivariate analysis that looks at 400 fields in the admissions application and catches the fraud across the board. And this is a truly multivariate analysis that allows you to catch fraud across the system, and it's performing at 98% accuracy. The reason why it's doing that is because we catch fraud at 3 levels. One, at the admissions level, where as soon as they apply, it looks at all the 120 fields and marks them as fraud or not, and we call it our admissions M1 model. And as a result, we are also now giving a signal to say, these students are ready to be imported into the student information system, these students needs to be sent for additional verification. And that is working at 93% accuracy. That sounds high, but 7% of 10,000 is still 700 students, or 7% of 3 million applications is still 21,000 applications. So we are catching the remaining of them by monitoring them at the enrollment level. We look at the registration statistics and say, can the registration data we use to find out if the student is truly a fraudster or not? And how we do that is by saying, of all the associate's degree students that have applied for math or carpentry or welding or whatever, how most of them are applying to these 15 courses, but this guy is, or girl, or a bot is applying to this other application. So we call it a registration fraud detection. It's catching at least 5% more fraudsters. And the final defense is the financial aid model. We will look at all the financial aid data and capture it. By using all of the above, we are able to catch over 99% of the fraud with maximum efficiency. So we also give you a UI so that you can see all the jobs that we run on every day and how many fraudsters it caught. And you can build a simple, seamless interface that will allow you to set up your mapping and the user interface, build out the analytics model, but this is the final step. So you can come in and say, if a student comes in and says, hey, my application has not been imported, why am I not enrolled in the classes? You can come into the system, search by ID, search by first name, last name, and you can see that if they're marked as fraud, you can mark them as not fraud, because system still has what's called false positives and false negatives. And we also can add a hold directly to the system, or we can submit them for identity verification. But ultimately, the key is for you to give a glass pane access so that you can see all the admissions data and see what decisions caused them to be marked as fraud or not. And the idea here is to give a full glass pane access so that you can catch fraud at admissions, catch fraud at registration, catch fraud at financial aid as well. So I know I went through a lot here. I want to give a couple of minutes for discussion for the 15-minute session we have. Any questions or concerns or comments on how the fraud model works or how it applies to your campus?